Hey guys, welcome to the Neglected Podcast. This podcast is not to change your mind, but to invite you into somebody else's narrative. This is a podcast to give a voice to the neglected. It is also an opportunity for all of us to engage.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Neglected Podcast. My name is Nick Schultz. You can hit me up at Schultz Time. You can find us at For the Neglected. And like always, here with our producer, Quinn. What's going on, Quinn? Thanks for being here. City Church, thank you for hosting. Have a very special guest today. Her name is Trish McKay. I want to thank you for being here. Say hi to everybody.
Hi.
And we have a very unique relationship. We've been through a lot of stuff with your family, your kids, and our families, and have supported one another through a lot of kind of different things. And we'll get into all of that, but just want to say thank you for being here, and really excited for the stuff that you have to share. And I'm really pumped. You're a good friend and a good mom, and we're excited that you finally said yes and came on the podcast to share your story. So I want to say thank you.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. All right, so we're going to get started just a little bit with your background, your story, where you grew up, what your family was like, and what life was like for little Trish growing up.
So I was born in California, in Santa Barbara, and basically my family had two boys that were older than me. They're 7 and 5 years older than me, and I was the baby and the only girl. And I was born into a family that went to a church, part of the Jesus movement of Southern California in the late 70s, apparently. I've learned about it in retrospect, okay. But I was born into that, and the defining characteristic of my childhood was that church, because it was a pretty domineering and controlling spiritual atmosphere. It said it preached the Bible, and it did. It preached Jesus, but basically it equated the spiritual authority on earth that God had made over you to God and his direction for your life. So they were, we basically, every 10 families, I know it sounds like a cult, and let me just tell you, there's been a documentary about this church because it is so cult-like, but whatever. So every 10 families had a personal pastor, and that personal pastor had responsibility for all of his families living a godly life, okay. Right? Mm-hmm. And I truly believe that all the people there involved in that movement really wanted to love Jesus, and they really had good motives. I don't think any of them knew they were being used of the enemy. But what the church really taught was that approval of men and success on earth it meant a blessing from God, and it meant that God approved of you, okay, and that he loved you. And so that spirit just permeated my entire childhood. Like, my worldview when it was being formed was that you had to be good to earn God's love.
Gotcha. And when you say, like, how controlling was it in all aspects of the life? It was like, you need to believe this. Was it controlling finances, where you go, when you go, who you talk to, like where you live? Like, how controlling was it?
So I was little, but I have learned from my mom and from other people that were in the church that it was so controlling that the pastors' wives would come over and make my mom feel horrible and shamed because she had the wrong china on the table for the dinner that she was supposed to host. Wow. And as far as the biggest stuff, it was where you live. Yeah. The personal pastor in charge of my family's group actually, so we were living life in Santa Barbara, California. And when I was 3, personal pastor said we had a call from God to move to Mobile, Alabama, which is a little different. Yeah. A lot different from Santa Barbara. So Southern California to Southern Alabama, and we were completely fish out of water, but it was God's will. and we had to suck it up. And yeah,
How
so
did
it was
your-
that controlling.
Yeah, wow. How did your parents get into it? Do you know how that happened?
I'm unclear about how exactly. I think I don't know. I think it was something like in college.
Okay.
When they were in college, they were introduced to someone. And honestly, my mom wasn't a Christian until college, and she gave her life to Jesus in college, and then she got married to my dad. And my dad had been a Christian since he was 6. But everyone has issues, right? So they found a place that was where you feel like you can belong.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of cults make you feel like you can belong.
Sure.
So I don't know how they got involved, but
you were in.
I was born into it.
Yeah.
And that's the mindset of the people around me, because of course all we hung out with was our church friends.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
So how old were you when you moved to Mobile?
I moved to Mobile when I was 3.
Okay.
And everybody else was Southern born and bred all around
Right.
me. And yeah.
But you were still living that life in Mobile, in that community, in that religious...
there was a big church that we planted and started, and it started growing, and it became a great big church. But it always had the spiritual authority, like we were the sheep in the flock, and the pastor was our shepherd. I know.
Are you having to wear certain like clothing too, like everybody's matching kind of stuff?
No, you just had to look nice,
Okay.
because you have to present well.
Okay, so as you're growing up, you're getting older, and you're in Mobile for a while, I'm guessing, before you go anywhere else?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're in Mobile for a while, you're becoming adolescent, teenager, all stuff. At what point do you see any harm in it or rebel against it, or just ask questions of, this is either weird or it's making me question things or think things about myself? Or you remember what those moments were like, or when it happened?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't see, when you have a worldview, it's like glasses on your
Sure.
face. And so you see everything through those glasses.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't think I really, I knew that it broke my family apart. I didn't know exactly why, because I was 9
Right.
when my mom left my dad because of, a lot of different issues that creates, all of the control. And from outside, instead of just being family, we had outside people telling us how to live and, do everything. And what house to buy, yeah, like you asked. We were told what house to buy in Mobile, and we were just told that we had to present everything. We had to make sure that people knew that we were blessed. So I equated man's approval to God's approval, and man's love and acceptance to God's love and acceptance. And if I looked good or had the right clothes or whatever, and it's hard and my dad was a landscaper, so it's not like he made a lot of money either. So we always felt less than, and we were judged all the time by the other people in our church because we weren't as blessed by God. So,
well, let's go to that moment where, what age were you when your parents split?
I was 9.
You were
which
9.
is very
And then,
poignant
what was that
for
like?
later in my story.
I know. So what was that like?
So when I was 9, my mom finally left, and she went to school to become a nurse because she was a stay-at-home mom and a good Christian wife until then. So she had to get an education. She went and got her degree. And so during that year that she was in school, I lived with my dad, and it was just my dad and my 2 older brothers and me. And that year, I was in fourth and fifth grade.
Right.
Was really a really dark time and a struggle, which it is for everybody, but I really felt so unloved the whole time. And there was everything was like in chaos. There's no solid foundation anymore. When your parents get divorced, well, that's gone. And that was the one thing that you can kind of stand on. And so then I lived with my mom for the rest of the time, from the age of 12 till I lived with her through high school and when I moved away.
Okay. So you're going through teenage years. Do you have contact with your father?
Yeah, but the weird thing is I don't have a lot of memories. I do have really good, like, sporadic memories where he was there. And he sent me to a summer camp one year when I was 14. Like, and that changed my life a little. Like, it made me want that relationship with God again, for myself. And then I don't know, like, it was, I don't have a whole lot of, we weren't involved in each other's lives a whole lot.
Yeah.
I lived with my mom, even though he was in the same city. He got remarried to a nice woman who I love, but we just didn't have a whole lot. It wasn't living together. And there was that worldview of you have to earn love, and you have to be a good Christian to be loved, is like, it was reinforced several times throughout my adolescence. And then there was, like, dark time where my mom got remarried to a man for 5 years from my ages 12 to 17. That was nothing but tension all the time. So that wasn't love. So anyway.
Yeah, I'm just wondering because, you're, from your religious experience, your worth is being tied up in man's approval, some other man's approval possibly, and your father isn't around, so you're not necessarily getting, words possibly of affirmation from, your biological father, and you're being told that you and your family are not this, or you need to be better, or this needs to be better, as a young girl going through adolescence, puberty, and stuff like that, and what your image of yourself is with all that stuff going on at the same time. Like, that had to be, I'm guessing, a little tough.
Right. So I gotta say this, I never doubted my father's love for me, and he's always loved me, and he's always been in my corner praying for me.
Yeah, just physically wasn't around,
but
though.
Physically, no. And when I needed practical help, no.
Yeah.
So, and all of my friends were Southern girls. They were daddy's little girl. And I had no idea. That was like the longing of my heart, really, because, and honestly, it's not about earthly fathers, really, is it? It's, for me, it was just that longing to be daddy's little girl, big D, like that my God would love me and accept me and be there for me and provide for me no matter what, no matter if I was good enough.
Yeah, but they never preached that, really?
I don't remember it being preached.
Yeah.
I do know a lot of Bible verses, but later on, after adolescence, when I was an adult, I did go through some dark times of struggle with God.
Well, let's start moving a little slowly there. So you said you moved away after high school. Did you go to college somewhere else than Mobile, or?
No, I met Ben.
Oh, the husband, future husband.
So awesome.
Yep.
So I met Ben, and he was from Birmingham, and I had finished 2 years of college, and I really did not know what I wanted to do. I really was just treading water. I had no plan. But Ben was from Birmingham, and he was going to go back there because he graduated college. And so I was like, I'm coming with you. And that was it. Like, I just went with him. I moved with him, and we got married shortly after that. And we started our family in Birmingham, and we thought it was just going to be like just him and I against the world. But God had other plans. He gave us a baby we lost. And then we had 1, 2, 3 boys. Baker, Noah, and Jacob, and like all 2 years apart. And it was like none of them were really planned except for Jacob, because I knew I didn't want just 2 children. I wanted 3, and I thought, maybe it would be that would just be enough. And so, so we had 3 boys, and I threw my heart into raising them and being the best mom. And I loved them. And so like that was my first experience with true love, like the self-sacrificing love that is unconditional. No matter what, I love you. And I threw my heart into homeschooling. I mean, I didn't have a career, and my husband did. And so it really worked out well that I could homeschool them. And I was so good at that. I just was good at it. And guess what? I learned that if you're good at something, then guess what? God loves you, because you're earning approval and you're earning God's love and you're earning his acceptance. And so throughout my life, if I was good at something, I would do it, because that's where I thought I'm just closer to getting God to love me.
So your experiences with your former, I don't even know if it's former, but like your previous religious experience.
Yeah.
That's one way it kind of manifested itself in your family.
Yeah.
Were there other things that you took into being a mom and a wife in your family that you didn't realize were, I don't want to say all unhealthy, but there's some good things you took into it from your previous experience, but there was also some unhealthy things that you didn't realize, or maybe your husband saw, or you eventually saw that, like, wow, because of what I went through and what I thought of, my worth and what was good, like I'm doing all these things and it's actually hurting and not helping. Right.
I mean, isn't that true for all of us? It's like when our worldview is being formed when we're tiny and we have no say over it. Mm-hmm. Our struggle is figuring out what's good about that and what's bad. Yeah. And so, I don't know, for me, I had little moments of close relationship with God, but it was always from a desperation point. And like, I thought of my life as one of unrequited love. It was just this tragedy where I was a desperate girl just wanting to be loved, right? And so it was just having to break that. But I did. I mean, like, I think every childhood, even ones that you see the dark, there's always light in it. And so, like, my mom always loved me, and she taught me how to be a good mom. I mean, so that I carried forward. But,
Yep. And then eventually you came to Savannah.
Yeah.
So, because, your boys are older now and everything. So when did that transition happen from... Were you in Mobile for a while with all three of the kids, and when did you come to Savannah?
Well, we started our family in Birmingham. Remember, I moved from
Birmingham.
Mobile,
my fault.
And then I went to Birmingham. We were there for 6 years, and then Ben was offered a job at a new branch of his engineering firm in Savannah, and we are like, we hear Savannah's beautiful. And I don't know anybody there. Yeah. But at that point, I mean, like, he grew up in Birmingham, and we just were ready to go and find out where our place in the world was. And so, yeah, we were like, let's go. And that was, during the whole big boom of 2005, engineering, construction, everything was going well. We didn't know the crash was coming in 2008 and the whatever. But God's been faithful to us in that way. But so, yeah, I don't know. It was we just wanted to try something new and make our own place, get away from the demons of our childhood, honestly, and see where we were going to be as a family. Okay.
Yeah, and then eventually, I guess that's how our paths intersected, because you've been in Savannah for a while.
A long time.
We came here 6 years ago. I had only 2014, something like that.
Okay.
But I think we've only known you for maybe 4 years, maybe 4 or 5.
Well, we started going to your church in January of 2016. No, it was February of 2016.
Okay. And so that's kind of when, I didn't know much about you until, like, your kids started showing up, because I was the family pastor at the church that we're all going to. And then you had 4 kids that were at the church. And so all of them were involved in some capacity.
Right.
And then I started doing some youth stuff a few years later, not right away, but we basically started like a youth ministry thing. And your 3 boys were the first kids that I really hung out with and did that with. And we just go out, the 3 of us, until we got more. And that's where we really started getting closer, at least I did, for your family and your boys, and love them. And so many good things came out of that. And then, that kind of transitions to the next part of the interview in your story here is you also had a daughter at the time. And, she was there with you all, and, want to give you an opportunity to kind of introduce what was going on with your family at the time and kind of go from there of this next big moment in all of your lives.
Yeah. So, we had our 3 boys. I was really excited to be a boy mom, and I didn't even think I wanted a girl, but, that is hilarious now because of how much I really did. And so, yeah, we were surprised and really excited by Kate. And so now I get to throw everything into raising a daughter. And that's new and exciting for me. And it was really cool. But at the same time, I was raising her through retrospective of my childhood, how could they do that? Or I would never want Kate to go through that, or anything that would come up, and it was just
so you really saw yourself more through her, more than you did the boys.
Of course. I mean, I had 2 older brothers, way older than me. She had 3. But she was so different. She was so different. She was, it was, for me, it was an experiment in what's it like to grow up knowing you're loved. And that's what she taught me. She grew up and she was free to just be herself and do things and have fun and try and not worry about being loved. And I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever, God. Oh, I wish, this is so cool. But yeah, so I had her, and when I was 29, and by the time I was 34, 35, and she was getting older, and I was experiencing how cool it was to have a girl grow up knowing she's loved. That's when I was really struggling, and I kind of went through my own spiritual crisis, where that's when I started questioning everything that I was taught. And when I was questioning and fighting all the worldview and those glasses that I had on about what does it mean to be loved by God, because I knew, because I was teaching my own daughter and sons, but I was teaching them that God loved them no matter what. And I'm like, but I know that he doesn't love me no matter what. And that's my truth. And I'm holding on to that because I guess there was no hope or no way of ever breaking that truth over.
So you believed what you were saying to them, but you couldn't believe it for yourself.
Oh, yeah. My entire life growing up in church, it was always about everybody else. And we just had to be good enough. But everybody else, God loved unconditionally. But when I was teaching my kids this, and then knowing from a parental point of view that God's my father, and he wants me to believe his truth, and so I was in a dark place where I got depressed. I didn't know what was even true. It was such an inner turmoil because I wanted to believe what I'd always believed, and it was not jiving with what God was teaching my children through me. And I'm like, okay, finally it came to a crisis point when I was 35. No, it was 36, 37, because it was about a year before Kate got diagnosed with cancer, that I finally was like, I'm done. I give up. If I'm in a boxing ring and I'm fighting God's truth that he loves me with my truth that no, you don't, I'm never going to win, because I just realized I was fighting God. And he's kind of, the creator of the universe, and he's more powerful than me. And what he says goes. And it just came to me that I got to just stop fighting. Okay, fine. I give up, God. Did I immediately feel love? Nope. I just made the decision that I was going to stop fighting him on it. okay, I believe you love me. Fine. And then I left the boxing match and I went on with my life, and I just kept doing what I was doing, and that was it. But if that hadn't happened, like if I hadn't, as an act of my will, said I am stopping fighting, I'm going to stop fighting. I don't know, like that was something that I see as a key point in getting me through the next phase, this next big, huge thing, which was Kate getting diagnosed with leukemia.
Yeah, so like spiritually, your own journey, you got to a point where you became kind of free from this bondage you were in or had yourself in for all these years. Then you become free, but it's almost like you became free in order to go through something.
Fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of explain kind of the next step of what happened with that.
So, so Kate was 9,
Mm-hmm.
and she was diagnosed with cancer. I didn't know you could just get cancer. Like it just comes out of nowhere. I mean, like this is...
And it was just at a random visit?
No, it was that I was getting her ready for dance pictures, and she just kind of whimpered, and she didn't whimper.
Yeah.
And she whimpered and kind of like fell over, like almost fainted into my arms. And I was just like, what's going on? And I get her onto my bed, and she is just like, the look on her face is she's just dazed and and for the past 3 days, she had been kind of paler than normal. Anybody who knows about childhood cancer can now tell me, duh, they would have probably known. But she had been paler than normal, and she had had bruises that she didn't know where she got them from. And then when she passed out, Ben, my husband, just was like, okay, that's it. We're going to take her in. All right. So we took her into an urgent care, and they did blood work. I really thought that they were going to tell me that she had mono or something really bad like that. And because that's what I thought was really bad. And she had like this extremely high white blood cell count, so she was fighting something really big, and go to the emergency room. What they couldn't diagnose her in the urgent care, but they knew from the blood work that's probably what it is. So we went to the emergency room, and they did all the tests, and they we're there in the room, Ben and Kate and I, and the doctor says that it looks like leukemia, and the oncologist is going to come in and talk to you. We're going to admit her into the hospital. You're going to go up to floor 3, and you're going to be there, and we'll get chemo started. And I was just like...
It's a lot to take in. Oof.
Okay. So right then was one of the most amazing moments. It was clear as day. God told me, how you frame this. This is an adventure you and Kate are going to go on. So I was able to look at her and say, you know what? We're on an adventure now. We're going to have some really scary times, but it's going to be exciting because we'll get to meet new people. We'll get to do some hard things, but it's going to be okay. We're going to go through this together. And so with that kind of frame, we were able to go forward, and she was just, she was unflappable.
Yeah, she's amazing.
She was not worried or scared. She was excited. And that's one thing the child life specialist that came in to talk to her, because, that's what she does. She talks to children that are facing really hard things, painful things and scary things, and strangers coming in and poking and prodding and looking and telling them these weird words that mom doesn't even know how to explain. And the child life specialist comes in and asks, and her name's Katie, and she's the best. And she comes and asked, my Kate, what's one word that you could describe how you feel about this? How about having cancer? And Kate just looked at her and goes, excited.
It's crazy.
And I was like, and Katie, the child life specialist, she was just like, nobody's ever said that. And I thought I had not explained it well enough. So I tried to explain it again and make it even more like, this is going to be hard. And she's like, no, it's exciting. I'm excited. And I'm like, okay. So she's so awesome. And I just was on this adventure with her.
It's amazing her outlook on life and her personality and her faith didn't change at all from before, during any of that. Mm-mm. To me, that's incredible.
She knew she was loved, and she knew she was taken care of. She knew that whatever happened, that mom and dad were there for her, that all her friends were there for her, that God loved her, and it was going to be okay, no matter what. And so she taught me so much. And anyway, that was a really special time for our family too, because we got to see the body of Christ, the church, what we call the church, be what it's supposed to be. And I'm just saying that when you are going through something like that and you have Christians around you coming into your life that you didn't even know or aren't even in the same country, and they're praying and sending you things and words of encouragement, and that right there redeemed the church for me once and for all. And I'd had a really good relationship with one church in particular in Savannah before we came to your church for a little while, but that right there was like, oh,
it's what it's supposed to be.
This is what we are supposed to be for each other. Not controlling, not shaming. God, it breaks my heart when his little children get shamed. Anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, let's continue kind of the timeline a little bit of what happened with her after she was diagnosed. Said she was excited, and what happened with the adventure after that, and kind of explain to everybody who doesn't know, it's listening, what that process was like.
So what happened was we were in the hospital getting started, initiated into the world of childhood cancer and everything that entails for about 8 days. And then we were sent home and told if she runs a fever, call immediately. A fever of over 100, I think it was. And so we had 2 days at home, and she had developed drug-induced diabetes. So on top of giving her medications, I also had to check her blood sugar every 2 hours, or I don't remember, and then give her insulin and all of this stuff. And this is so new to me. I had not even gotten my feet under me yet. I had so many people helping me though, and coming in and taking care of all the other stuff so I could focus on Kate and learn this whole new language. But lo and behold, 2 days into this, learning how to be her nurse and her mom, she got a fever, and we went into the hospital to the emergency room. And so they sent us back up to the floor where we had been, the pediatric oncology floor. And we got into that room, and she, it wasn't just that she had a fever, it was just immediate. When we got there, she started complaining that her lungs were hurting. And then she started throwing up blood. I don't know how graphic you want me to get.
It's good. Go ahead.
So she started throwing up blood, and her lungs were kind of up. Now I know they were stiffening. She was going into septic shock. And that was the first time I'd ever even heard that phrase. And now I hear it all the time. You know how
yeah.
Now it's oh, it's a word that's out there. But anyways, so that my daughter went into septic shock, and she, for about 2 hours, while they were getting everything situated and everything in place, it felt like a madhouse around me, with doctors and nurses and everybody coming in and specialists. And then we were transferred to the PICU, pediatric ICU, because they needed to sedate her and put a ventilator in so that she could breathe and her body could rest while they tried to fight the infection for her.
Right.
Because when you have leukemia and you've been going through your medication, leukemia is cancer of the white blood cell. White blood cells are not doing their job. And so basically the chemotherapy is designed to like kill all the leukemia cells, which it also kills all your white blood cells, which
Right.
makes you more prone to infection. And she had diabetes, and high blood sugar also makes you more prone to infection. I've learned all this since. But so she went into septic shock. They sedated her, and that was the worst night of my life. Being with her for those 2 hours of trauma. And one thing she did say, the second to last thing she said was, "Aren't you just so thankful that God made us live so close to the hospital so that we could get here and this not happen at home, that we could get here where all these people could help me?" And so 2 hours later, the last thing she said was, "When can I go to sleep?" And so she went to sleep, and that started a week of her being in a hospital bed, sedated, and all the things that they try to do to save your daughter. And so I lived at the hospital next to my daughter who was dying, and thousands of people were praying, but that was the hardest but holiest time of my entire life, because God was there. He never left me, and I knew it. And in those moments, in those days of just in the valley of the shadow of death, I mean, I realized that how much God loves me, and I felt it for the first time. It wasn't just knowledge that I'd conceded in a fight. I'm like, if I love Kate this much, and I just want her to be with me so much, and I would give anything for her to be with me, God just kept whispering to my heart throughout that whole week, "That's how I feel about you. I just want to be with you, and I love you so much. And that's how I feel about all my children." And I was just like, I was overcome by his love, and I had never felt it before.
Well, I can attest to it too, of being up there a few times with your family, and I can give firsthand account of it. It's like there were times where I saw your face and your body, and you were just empty, not of God or love, but just physical exhaustion, physical, emotional, mental exhaustion from being there, what you were going through, where it was just sometimes scary to look at you, but yet you would say things and thank people and tell people how much God loved you and loved Kate. Like, you would say these things, even though your body was fried, your mind was fried, but yet the things you're talking about of feeling loved, you were still showing that, you were still saying those things. And to me, that was pretty incredible to be there for it and experience it.
It was incredible.
Yeah. And so she was sedated for, was it about a week before she ultimately passed away?
Yeah. She hung on for a week, but and I never gave up hope. Like, I thought that all these people praying, I was going to get a miracle. Like, this was going to be the best story ever.
Yeah.
I could not wait to share this.
You
like,
had
oh
hope
my
the
gosh.
whole time.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
I knew that, like, we were going to have the biggest party in Forsyth Park, and we were just going to have balloons everywhere, because look at her. My daughter once was almost dead, but now she's alive and well. And it's just like, isn't that the heart of God, right? For every one of us. And it just, God, those lessons. And from childhood, I was raised in the church. I did hear Bible stories. And so I just had the wrong glasses on. And so, like, when I finally got that God loved me, I got to hear all of those stories that I'd learned and all those Bible verses and chapters that I'd memorized and all those worship songs that I had sung, I had finally gotten the truth of it for me. And what an amazing thing it is to be loved by God, and how much he longs for us. Like, I look at people now all the time in a different way, because I just hear it all the time in my head. I'm like, you're God's Kate. You're God's Kate. Like, he wants you as much as I wanted Kate. You know, it's just, he loves you so much. And it just breaks my heart. It would break my heart if Kate didn't think I loved her. Mm-hmm. And it breaks my heart that we don't believe God when he says he loves us, and he would give anything just to be with us. Yeah. And so it's amazing, the fact that I thought that I was done with children, with 3 boys, and it was just like God's like, no, I'm not finished with you. I need to give you a message. And I felt like, I know that Kate was sent on lots of different assignments. She has done so much I will never even understand, but one of her big assignments was to get through my head once and for all and get into my heart that I am Daddy's little girl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When you talk about it, just takes me back, because, you know, the time we're doing this right now is 2 years, basically 2 years since she left.
Yeah.
And, you know, Mother's Day is this Sunday, and it's just like, it's just a crazy timing of all that, of all this coming together, and the way your story is told, and like what happened to you when you were 9 and her being 9, and,
yeah,
you know, this happening close to Mother's Day. And it's just, you know, it can be a time of getting so caught up in pain and hurt, and the opposite of what you're saying is, you know, why would you do this, God? Why would you do this? But whenever you talk about your daughter, and I know you grieve and like there's pain there, but yeah, you take as many opportunities as you can to celebrate her life, celebrate what she taught you, celebrate what God did in her life. And, you know, that's, to me, one of the amazing things about how she's remembered is a lot of it is through you, because you choose to share her story that way. It's not, look what happened to us and this is horrible. Like, she was such a blessing, and this was a blessing. She even said she was excited to go through it, and like, it's just crazy stuff that is the opposite of what
it is.
I would think, what everybody else would think.
Yeah.
And yet, you know, just grateful for you to go through that.
Well, like you said, it's like she had completed her assignment. Some of us, it takes forever. Like it feels like it's going to take some of us a long time, but I feel like God has a purpose for each one of us, and she accomplished her purpose in 9 years, and she was willing and to do that. And I know that she is so proud of all of us now. And honestly, the reason I talk about her and I tell what God taught me and the lessons that God taught me through her life and death is because I'm still her mom, and I'm really proud of her. And I want to boast about how my daughter completed this assignment, and it's up to me to live the rest of my life clinging to these lessons that God used her to teach me, because that means she did not live or die in vain. And I am still a mama bear about that. She's not going to live or die in vain. And I know that, it's just for the rest of my life, I will honor her memory and her mission accomplished by making sure I tell others about it. And so, yeah, it's just, I realized that my unrequited love story that I thought I was on was the exact opposite. My life was a love story of God's unrelenting love for me, and he wasn't going to stop until I got it. And he used the best, most amazing girl to do that for me, and I get her forever because she's eternal. We don't lose what lasts forever. So, I have eternity to look forward to now, and that's one thing that I am so grateful for. Now I have eternal glasses. I don't have shame. I don't have judgment. I'm loved, and eternity's going to be awesome. Glasses on my face all the time. And I just pray that continues, you know?
Yeah, that's really good. And, one of the things I remember too is just because, I was at the hospital when they pronounced that she was gone. And, different people go through different emotions when that decision happens, that, God takes her and the doctors come out and, all your family was there, your husband and your sons, and you are the only female in a family of all boys now. And,
Yep.
and they're very different, and they process different than you, your husband, your boys. And it's just like, one of my things is just like how you go about living your life, because you're very different when talking about Kate or, sharing certain things. And it's not bad. Everybody has their own thing. But, eventually going home when she is officially gone, and kind of the grieving and now we're not at the hospital anymore. We're home and we're a family, and now we have to learn how to actually go on without her. It's not just this idea, it's a reality. And, I even remember with one of your sons when we were there, and they were just all dealing with it differently. A couple of them stayed there, and one of them, he just asked me hey, can we leave? I need to go away.
Yeah.
And we did, and we just went walking around at the park or the mall or something, just kind of talking. And I'd never experienced something like that before. So I'm I'm a pastor, but I'm getting firsthand knowledge of what it's actually like to be with somebody when they lose a child and see it. And so my question is what was that like for you, but also as a family when, everything kind of settled a little bit and it's a week or two later and you're all having to live your lives and everybody's dealing with it differently than maybe you expect them to, or you want them to, and you want to talk about stuff, you want to do this, and they want to kind of do something different. Is there any kind of struggle there for you of what that post time was like?
Yeah, and I want always to respect these people in my home. I've never thought of children as my children, children. I've always looked at them and seen a person. They are individuals, and they're people. So, and God has a story that He's writing for them, and it includes this chapter. And I just want to. I really, like you said, you were learning what each individual kind of needs in a situation. Mm-hmm. I've seen that there are a lot of times where people will try to help and it's not helpful, so just being aware of there's different ways to grieve. Not all grieving looks the same, and every single person is dealing with it through their own lens, right? Yeah. And so one thing that's really encouraging to me is, unfortunately, through the last 2 years, we've actually had 3 other people lose children in their family. And I can relate on a gut level now. I'm not one of the people that comes up from the periphery saying, oh, I can't imagine. I just couldn't imagine. And they have good intentions, but yeah, they can't imagine. Now I can imagine because I know exactly what it's like to have your heart living in heaven ripped out. And it's just I can. And so I've seen my boys actually take initiative with friends who have lost a sibling. They go and they take them out to the mall, or they take them out to shoot basketball, or they know now, they don't want to be around all of those grown-ups talking about God or whatever. They need to go shoot some basketball, or just go out and get some buffalo wings. And so I love that they know that. And it's just whatever we go through in life, we can use to help others that are going through it. So, yeah, there's so much that was good that was done. I couldn't possibly thank everyone that came out to help us, but yeah, I love that we get to actually come alongside someone and sit in grief with them now.
Yeah.
Not like you want to. It's not like I wanted to imagine what it was like. You don't want to. But, if this is part of your story, then God can use it in someone else's too.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned before too, 'cause I want to kind of tie this all up to what you're doing now to honor Kate, remember her, but also kind of, your mission now as a mom and the things you're doing, you've learned. And, one of the things you said to me before was sometimes it's hard for people to approach you or know what to say, whether it was when you were going through that experience or afterwards, and not wanting to, ask about Kate or ask about certain things to avoid, bringing up pain. But you were saying that it's like, one of the best things they can do is just share memories. Like, don't be afraid to talk about her, whether it just happened, and she's laying in the bed, or, 2 years later, like when you share something she taught you or something, a great experience you had, like that's so meaningful to you.
Mm-hmm.
Elaborate on that a little bit.
Well, I mean, I'm still a mom, and parents are always going to be parents, whether or not their children are living in heaven. And we love talking about our kids. And we love hearing funny stories about our kids. And they're not, just because they don't live here doesn't mean that they're not still a huge, part of our lives and our stories. And so, yeah, I love hearing stories about Kate. I love hearing memories that you have with her. And even if you didn't know her, like, one of the best things that feeds my soul, just like, it's so cool. And it keeps me going. Like, seriously, it'll give me strength to keep going in the dark times. It's like when someone comes up and says, I didn't know Kate, but I heard her story, and this is how she's affected me, or this is how she changed my belief about this, or whatever. And it's just like, I'm a proud mama because my daughter did that. I can say, oh my gosh, look at what my daughter's doing with her life. And it's just like so exciting. So yeah, no matter what, I would say if someone loses a child, even if they lose anyone, my experience is losing a child. But if you lose someone close to you, I don't think that anyone wants to forget them. Nobody wants to forget the person that meant so much to them. And it really is, I think, the worst when you can tell someone's avoiding that person as a topic. But, we all, like, before I lost Kate, I was probably the worst about that too. Like, I would be like, I don't know what to say, so I'm going to avoid it. Mm-hmm. But, when you know, then better, you do better, right? Mm-hmm. So now it's like, don't avoid topics that might be, hard because you don't know what to say.
Yeah. Well, I have so many good memories of her. I do. I have video on my phone of us dancing together at church for one of the songs. I've got, I remember I have a picture that I took of her and I, and it was just the two of us in a room playing Mario Kart or something on the Wii, because I went up there and you'd been in the room for like
ever
who knows how many hours in a row, and it was one of those moments where I was just like, I think you need to get some air and just get out for a few minutes, because you wouldn't leave unless somebody made you leave the room,
right?
And so I remember saying, hey, I'm okay, go leave for a while. And it was just her and I up there laughing, and she was kicking the crap out of me playing whatever video game we were playing and laughing at me.
Probably talking trash.
She was talking trash, laughing.
She has those big brothers to teach her.
And took a picture of us, and I still have that. I love that memory, but just her attitude and spirit the whole time. Like, I'm getting caught up, like, hey, we're having fun playing card. And then I'm like, whoa, you have leukemia and we're in the hospital. And
you're attached to
you are
machine. Yeah.
You are so amazing. And you also, your family, I remember her, like, you were so helpful to us, like when we would foster, and like you would bring your boys over and Kate to our house when we had our first foster care placement, because we had 6 kids in the house, 2 foster twin girl toddlers and our own baby boy, and it was just chaos. And you would just bring your boys and Kate over and unleash them, and they would just go play with all of our kids in the backyard. So my wife and I could just, sit for a couple minutes, and you would talk to my wife, and it's just like those little things of, that's what your family does. That's what she did. And she didn't have to be told to do it. It's like, hey, Kate boys, we're going over here to love their kids. And boom, there she went,
Yeah.
playing with them. And it's just, I love that. And, you know, I think definitely one of the biggest ones too is just like, you asked me to do her funeral service. And one of the most powerful things for me was obviously in the hospital, all those moments, and, you know, when she was pronounced, but it was also coming over the next day before the funeral and just sitting in her room and talking with you about her life and seeing all of her stuff in there and like what made her who she was. And like, that was extremely, I'll never forget that. Just like those 3 days of her being in her room and hearing about her life and things I didn't know, to being able to talk on her behalf for your family. And I'm very appreciative of it. And it was the first child funeral I've ever done. And, you know, you guys were close too. It wasn't like something that was, hey, can you come in and do this? Even you don't know him. It was like very personal. And my son was 9 years old too.
Oh,
and,
my gosh.
You know, and it's
so hard.
But her life made it, it's going to sound weird, but her life made it enjoyable to do the service.
Yeah.
As hard as it was a celebration, and it was enjoyable to talk about her, even if it was in the human past tense. It's like, she was awesome, and we're going to celebrate this, as hard as it is for everybody. Like, this is okay.
That's the one thing about her. I didn't have bad memories with her.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's so unusual. And I see that now. But we just had a really close, good relationship. I kept waiting for the issues to come. But, you know, because I was one big issue when I was 9 years old. Ugh. But she was just so humbly confident. Does that make sense? It's just like, she taught me what it was like to try to work hard at something, to get better at something, because she danced. She loved dance. She wanted to be in competitive dance. And she taught me what it was like to work hard to get better, just for the joy of doing it well, not out of desperation to earn someone's approval. I had no idea that you could do that. And it was awesome to see her working hard because she enjoyed it. And I was like, this is awesome, just to know you're loved. And it was just, I love talking about her. I love remembering her life, and I will carry her message till the time that I get to go and be reunited with her, as long as I'm here.
And that's one of the ways that you have been keeping her memory alive, is you still are very close with her dance studio or team, and they do a great job of honoring her, and you do a great job of keeping her memory alive. And and you know, was that hard at first, or has it always been a joyful thing just to be around girls her age who are living out the dream that she wanted to live out, but you don't have her now, you know?
I don't know, man. I can't explain it. She's there. It's like, you know, and I said this at, you know, Butterfly Release, I feel like I'm the mom. I should have left her an inheritance when I die. But it's so backwards. She's left me an inheritance. She has willed me some things that are priceless, and one of them is her dance company. We have a dance scholarship now for other girls and boys who would want to dance competitively, and they show that drive by working hard and not comparing themselves to others. I mean, how cool is that? Like, I still pinch myself because I know Kate would be mind blown that she's got, like, I don't know, a room at the dance studio named after her, and like a legacy of you know, dance, and that's so cool. So no, it's like, it's not hard. It was hard a couple of times, not like in the moment when I'm with the children. Oh my gosh, it's like, instead of one daughter, God gave me 1,000. Every daughter now is mine. I love them all so much. And so the dancers at her dance studio, I'm like, they're my daughters now. And Kate loved them, and I love them. It's just like, it's just part of the inheritance that I got from my daughter, is this amazing group of girls who also, guess what, need to know that they're loved, and probably sometimes struggle with that, like I did as a kid. And I don't want anybody to struggle with that. Not that I know now. Like, now that I know, now that God has shown me through the life and death of my daughter. I'm never going to stop telling girls they're loved and that they don't have to compare themselves to others and they don't have to earn approval from men to be approved by God, and that they are daddy's little girl, no matter what kind of, childhood they have. And it's just so important to me. It gives me life and it gives me strength to do that. There were a couple of times that were hard because when I leave this dance studio, I'm going home, Kate's not in the car with me.
Right.
And that hits hard. But I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Makes sense. And I think you've summed it all up really well and can kind of see the whole picture kind of coming together where you're at now and how what you went through when you were younger to with Kate has kind of given you some amazing purpose right now and the rest of your life. And, my question is for somebody that is struggling in those moments and are going through those things, whether it's your identity as, a female or a male, just like feeling loved or the struggle of going through the loss of a child or that, the process of losing a child.
Yeah.
What were the things that were really helpful that other people did, or looking back on it, these kind of things would make a big impact in my life if people did them? And they don't have to be huge, massive things,
Right.
but it's just like somebody listening to this, hey, I know somebody who's going through really bad self-identity or doesn't feel loved, or I know somebody that just lost someone or is about to lose someone. What are those things that are small but really helpful, and we can all do them?
Well, one thing that is really important, it was really important for me, is the amount of practical help that you're given. So when you're going through something as traumatic and life-changing as your child is diagnosed with cancer, you lose everything in life. Nothing else matters. Literally nothing.
Yeah.
Just your child and their health. You might have other children. Guess what? They're going to have to be okay because, right now, I have to focus on this one. And that, for me, only lasted 20 days. Some people, it lasts years. And that's a different situation. But what was so important was the practical help that people gave with taking meals to my guys, taking them out, taking care of the yard and the cars and the whatever else. I mean, just everything you don't think about because it's just part of your normal life. All normalcy is gone. And you're living in a hospital and you don't even know if the dogs got fed last week. Seriously. So all of those practical things are so helpful. But that's for people who are in the place to do those. If you don't even live in the same city, I can tell you just getting messages on Facebook or a text message or, find a route, even cards. Oh my gosh, I got so many heartfelt cards. And each one of them is just like a life. It's just, I don't know, it just gave me strength because someone else is thinking about this. Someone else is grieving with me. Someone else is thinking about Kate right now. And in the moment, I remember thinking that it really felt like my grief was dissipated over all the thousands of people. And it would have been too heavy to carry on my own. But because other people were telling me, hey, I'm praying for you, or, anything, how are you doing today? I had friends checking on me every day. How are you doing? I'm thinking about Kate. And because of that, or I'm really sad today. I really miss Kate today. Just telling me they miss Kate.
Yeah, it's interesting.
It helps.
Right.
Because it just feels like it dissipates the grief, or as if it was a heavy weight, but now 2 people are carrying it, or 5, or however many. And I know that a lot of people have to grieve alone, and I don't think that is actually possible to get through. I don't know what I would have done if not everybody had been, grieving with me. So
That's interesting, because a lot of times we think, well, if I don't know the person very well, then I'm bothering them, or, you know, they've got so much else going on to worry about than me sending them like, hey, I love you or something like that. But yet it's the opposite.
Well, I have a practical tip for that.
Yes.
If you want to talk to somebody or tell somebody you're thinking about them when they're going through a crisis and you don't know them well enough and you feel like you're bothering them, before you even write your text, you say, no need to respond. I just want to blah, blah, blah. And because honestly,
That's good.
just the blanket statement, you don't have to respond. I just want you to know I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Because, or please don't respond. You don't have to. I just want you to know I'm praying for you.
That's good.
That is so helpful, because even when they don't say that, I still feel, I want to say thank you to everybody.
Yeah.
And I always forget people.
Yeah.
So just giving grace, and so many people did. And that stuck out to me. Like the people who said, no need to thank you,
Mm-hmm.
it was good.
That's really good advice. I like that. I'm going to take it. I'm going to write it down. I like that a lot. Well, I appreciate you sharing your story, Kate's story, and it's amazing how tied in they are together, not just because you're a mother and she's your daughter, but just all the nuances of her age and what she taught you, but also what you taught her too. You know what I mean? It's like the child, for her to be able to thrive and be that kind of a child is because she had a healthy home to be in, had a healthy mom, had a healthy dad, had great brothers, where you didn't think of those things necessarily because you were growing up in an environment that you didn't know was, a lot of it was unhealthy. But then when she was able to be in that healthy environment, she was able to flourish. Mm-hmm. And then she leaves you all those amazing things, but it was also because you provided an environment for her to be healthy in, to go in that way.
Right.
And so I think it's pretty awesome.
It's all grace, isn't it? It's all a gift.
Yeah, I'm glad you look at it as like that, because perspective can really change our entire life of how we view what we're going through. And so the fact that you look at your life as a gift, even though it's horrible, some of it's horrible gifts that nobody would ever want, seeing a bigger picture of what the purpose behind it is, what it can be. And so you're still teaching me stuff, Trish McKay, so I appreciate it. And I thank you for being on the podcast.
Yeah.
I know it was it was hard to come on here and you weren't sure at first, and it was just to make sure it was, you were ready to be on it, and I knew you would be awesome, and you were.
Thanks.
Yep. Any final things you want to say, or are you good to go?
Just that I know that this is not the end, and that this earth life is not the life that I'm living for necessarily. It's like eternity is going to be awesome. We're all going to be able to be together again. And just if you are struggling with self-loathing and self-hatred and shame, just for not being good enough like I was, I just want to encourage you to stop fighting God, because he will win. He's stronger than you. So give up. Put down the boxing gloves and just take the step of acknowledging that he might be right and he actually might love you unconditionally, and then see where that goes.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your life, your words of wisdom, sharing Kate's story, and it's amazing.
Thank you for everything that you've done for our family.
Oh, you're
for
welcome.
being there for my boys.
My pleasure. We love you all, and
Love you too.
love all your boys at home too. All right. Well, this has been the Neglected Podcast. Again, you can hit us up at For the Neglected on social media. Quinn, thanks for producing. City Church, thanks for hosting. And Trish McKay, thank you for being our guest. And we'll catch you next time. Peace.